What we have here is a blade that's manufactured out of old rebar. Rebar is not necessarily a real high grade of metal, but once it's been heat treated and filed down, I've found that they make really good, very cheap throwing knives, really good work knives. So what I'm doing at this point is I'm actually going back and reshaping the angle of the blade. It was a little bit too thick, had a little bit too steep of an angle coming together, which meant it was good for throwing, but this knife turned out so nice that I think I want to turn it into a regular functional outdoor knife with a wrapped paracord handle, which serves a couple different uses we'll address later, I'm sure. So at this point, rather than putting on the actual bevel, the cutting edge, I'm just reshaping the knife edge itself about a third the way down through the blade, cutting in to make a more gentle slope down to a point. This thins the knife blade, which has the ultimate result of creating a sharper, longer lasting sharpness on your knife blade. So I'm using the coarse side of this particular stone, and I'm just working. Got the knife in the vise here so that the angle stays the same, and I'm working on it very much the way that I do axe heads. There are so many different techniques to sharpening blades. There's probably a different opinion on how to do it for as many hairstyles as there is in the world or whatever, but this way works just great, and so that's why I do it this way. The most important key, of course, is to keep the exact same angle during all times. If you were to shift the angle of your stone while sharpening, that would effectively ruin your knife, which is why most beginners shouldn't attempt to sharpen a knife that's a real nice knife. It's good to make your own knives and practice on your own knives, and then kind of learn about the metal and the hardness and the angles and the blades, and learning by experience. So I just work my way up and down the blade, using as much of the stone as I can without changing the angle of my wrist. At this point, because I'm changing the overall shape of the blade rather than putting on the fine edge, the cutting edge, I don't have to worry about feeling the burr along the back side of the edge. That'll come later as I get down into the actual sharpening edge. Like most things in life, you kind of have to decide speed or power, strength or penetration. You know, you could take a sewing needle and with very few pounds per of pressure, you could push it real deep into something, whereas if you take a sledgehammer and try to push it into your arm, if you push it gently, it won't really hurt. Like that, same way, the sledgehammer is a lot stronger as far as resistant to being broken. A knife, you have to decide while you're sharpening or making your knife, what's the purpose going to be? Do I want it to be really sharp, a real keen edge that's also fragile? Or do I want it to have a thicker edge that can withstand more abuse and take more heavier type cutting? And it's kind of, I tend to find sort of some happy medium in between. You'll notice there's a part of the blade here where it's not cutting down into the metal, and that's because this is a hand-forged knife, and that part of the blade actually dips in because the rest of the knife is a little bit thicker. So this is called the bevel, this angle from about halfway to a third the way coming down to the point. And then once I get this bevel that we're working on here pretty thin, I'll put on a second bevel, and that'll be the cutting edge right along the edge, just a much smaller angle, probably about 1/8 of an inch down off the top edge, and that will be the actual slicing of the cutting edge. Check my angle. Make sure everything's secure on the vise, and I begin that same process all over again on the new side.